everyone. I'm Irfan Asir from BSIR Second, and I welcome you all here on the behalf of Team Daydreamers in our very first virtual session for book review. So for those who have just joined us today, let me give you a short introduction of what Daydreamers is all about. Daydreamers is a platform initiated by the group of students of International Relations at NUML. Their main purpose is to engage students in productive activities and polish their oratory, writing, and declamation skills, which are obviously very important skills for a student of international relation for the long run in their career. So the strategy followed by daydreamers include OTT sessions and book review sessions that are held on the topics include contemporary issues, historical events, and other topics having some importance for CSS or PMS. So tonight's session is all about book review as reading exposes you to the new things, new ways, new understanding and informations, new ways to handle situations and solve problems. It makes you understand things in different perspectives, makes you understand yourself differently, and opens up your minds and assists you to accept the changes in your life and also helps you to understand the world properly. So it definitely makes you smarter. So now moving on forward, we have here with us Mr. Izaz Khattak as speaker tonight, who is a student of PSIR 5th at NUML Islamabad. He is a young bibliophile blessed with immense speed of reading and remarkable analytic power. He has read many books by great authors regarding the subject of global politics, and in today's session, he will be enlightening us with a comprehensive review of the book World Order by Henry Kissinger. So before inviting him here, I would like to make a humble request from all of you to please make sure that your mics are turned off throughout the session and try not to disturb in between. If you have any suggestion, you can drop that simply into the chat box. That will definitely be reviewed and discussed at the end of the session. I'm highly hopeful of your cooperation, and this session will definitely be informative for all of you. So now let's have with us Mr. Izaz Khattak.
Thank you very much, Arfa, for giving me this opportunity and introducing me in kind words. Arjun's name is Izaz Khattak, student of International Relations and a bibliophile. So today I'm going to present a review of one of the important book specifically for students of International Relations, and for the purpose I will share my screen also with you people. So today the topic which I have selected for reviewing before you people is World Order by Henry Kissinger, and it is very important for the students of international relations. Without wasting time, we will start with our book review. This is some general information about the book. Book name is World Order. The author is Henry Kissinger. It was published back in 2014 on 9th of September. And the total number of pages in this book are 432. But before going towards the book review, let me introduce author in very brief form. Henry Kissinger served in US Army during Second World War and subsequently held teaching posts in history and government at Harvard University, one of the reputed university in the world, usually laid in top 3 for 20 years. Like he was a professor for 20 years of international and global politics. Along with that, he served as National Security Advisor and then Secretary of State under Richard Nixon, President of US, and Gerald Ford, who was also President of US, and advised many other presidents on foreign policy as well. He received 1973 Nobel Prize and the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Medal of Liberty, among other awards. He is the author of numerous books and articles on foreign policy and diplomacy. Now coming towards the subject matter of our today's book. My screen is visible to everyone. Please confirm, Arfa.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, coming towards the subject matter of the book. The book basically addresses 4 major topics, in which the first major concept in teaching of the book is about European balance of power, one of the militarized continent of world. In this concept, in this phase of book, Henry Kissinger take into account the historical Treaty of Westphalia, which was like a milestone in not only in the history of Europe, but in the history of whole world, in the history of international relation and global politics. And the next major topic of the book is Asian balance of power, with special focus on emerging nature of China. Moving forward in the verses of book, we will discuss the concept of Islamic world order with special concern or central concern on Iran. And finally, we will end our today's session with reviewing American world order by Henry Kissinger. Now, starting with the author statement, like it is a crux of book, we can say. The author in this book basically convey the idea that there isn't any kind of true world order, any particular world order prevailing in contemporary world. Further, the author states that civilization on Earth's surface define world order according to their own perspective and consider herself a center of world power, which is the very cause of lack of appropriate word. Or like in our society, the one with greater power consider him or herself the boss of the society. Same goes for the global politics. The civilization, the state, the zone, the region, which emerge militarily or economically consider him herself the dictator of whole world, due to which there isn't any appropriate world are still prevailing in this world. Henry Kissinger believes that for achieving world order, every state should play its like it's a cumulative job. One state cannot achieve world order in contemporary world without combined approach. Appropriate world order cannot be achieved because contemporary world is in a complex interdependence situation. We are living in a world which is like a global village. Now, my analysis on this approach, the protestation is quite applicable in my opinion, and this is pertinent in today's world order. If we will observe, if we will analyze the other statement in today's world, in contemporary world, it will be clear to all of us that Atar is quite right in his statement which he made back in 2014. In today's world, in contemporary situation, the global environment lack better world order because there is a continuous hegemonic race between global power due to very nature of state and due to the national interest of the state. Today, United States of America and People Republic of China are engaged in Cold War because both of them believe that their power center of the world and the anarchic structure of the world gives states free hand in this regard. Lack of global sovereign authority is responsible for inadequate world order. The author is quite right in this statement. Now, starting with the first chapter of the book, the first major zone of the book, the first subject matter of the book. The first chapter of the book, World Order by Henry Kissinger, revolves around Europe and the order prevailing around the European state. The author takes start from the balance of power in Europe because Europe is one of the largest continent of the world and most important states of the world lies in Europe. The writer draws back to 1648 Treaty of Westphalia, followed by French Revolution. These both events are very important in history of international relation. That's why the author, very clever author, start with Treaty of Westphalia because foundation of balance of power can be traced back to these two phenomena, these two events of world which change, which shape the order of globe. According to the author, the 30-year wars which lead to accomplishment of Treaty of Westphalia and French Revolution part foundation for modern state system. The students of IR are quite clear with the concept of Treaty of Westphalia that today's nation state concept we are living in, we got it from Treaty of Westphalia which happened back in 1648 on the land of Europe. Similarly, French Revolution was also very important in historical context of international relation. Today's world order is complete reflection of Westphalian state system. According to Atar, today the Westphalia concepts are often slender. Is a power of misanthropic manipulations indifferent to moral claims. But still today's structure represent Westphalia is in first is institutionalized in international order on the basis of agreed rules and limits, and to base it on multiplicity of powers rather than the dominance of a single country. In contemporary era, every power, every state is struggling for power. They completely disregard the teachings of Westphalia. We have got 16 to 20 teachings from Treaty of Westphalia, in which one is the concept of nation state and nation sovereignty, along with keeping religion and politics aside. Various teachings we can get from Treaty of Westphalia. The author also makes in this chapter, in the same chapter, the author also makes quite consequential statement about the aftermaths of French Revolution, which disturbed the historical balance of power in European society. But the emergence of nation-state system again the disturbed balance of power. The protestation made by author in this chapter is quite consequential in my opinion, because when proletarian challenged the queen hegemonic nature, alarm of threat arose throughout the Europe. Those who are familiar with the French Revolution know very well that there was a queen was autocratic type of ruler and ruling the French, but once upon a time the proletarian, the working class challenged the queen hegemonic nature, and it ended with the French Revolution. And when proletarian were challenging the queen, there was a threat arise throughout the Europe. Whole Europe were worried due to the proletarian class, due to the working class. Like in contemporary world, terrorist activity in one state leads to terror in rest of the state. Same notion were prevailing in Europe after French Revolution. The terror created by French revolutionists disturbed balance of power in the whole Europe. After Treaty of Westphalia, French Revolution was the first remarkable event due to which the balance of power in Europe get disturbed, and still it is disturbed in today's world. Now coming towards the second chapter of the book is an extension of first chapter, in which Henry Kissinger further elaborate. Coming towards the second chapter of the book is an extension of the first chapter, in which Henry Kissinger further elaborate European balance of power along with its end, according to the other European balance of power. This is also an extension, the topic which Henry Kissinger was telling about in the last chapter, the European of balance of power, is further elaborated in this chapter. And according to Arthur, European balance of power always remains in dynamic position due to presence of Russia in the region. Now, if you will observe the European region politics always remains so dynamic. They never stay static. They never stop at single point. It always change with the passage of time. Now, according to Akhtar, the presence of Russia is, we all know that part of Russia is in Europe, and part of Russia is in Asia. According to Akhtar, the part of Russia which is in Europe is the basic reason, is the leading cause of disturbed nature of European balance of power. In this chapter, the author also makes quite consequential statement regarding Congress of Vienna. Congress of Vienna was another historical event in the history of international relation, happened back in 1814 between the major powers of Europe. It was also a milestone in achieving balance of power. Like it was the first, according to Athar, it was the first occasion, it was the only occasion when Europe was going through appropriate phase of balance of power, except the stage of Congress of Vienna, except the time of Congress of Vienna, the European continent never test the balance of power due to presence of Russia in this region. Now, moving forward in this chapter, further in this chapter, the author also perpetuates European balance of power between two world wars. By giving a historical context, now the author comes to 20th century, the century of world wars, when two world wars were being fought on the land of Europe. Another perspective, the leading cause of European imbalance of power is the deterioration of teachings of Treaty Westphalia. Here in this chapter, the author again repeat his stance about the Treaty of Westphalia that until unless European nation will not follow the teachings of Treaty of Westphalia, they will never taste balance of power, because the author believed that Treaty of Westphalia clearly laid the foundation for balance of power. But European states violate the teachings of Treaty of Westphalia time and again, which is responsible for Europe pathetic situation. Now, if we will look today European continent and will compare it with the historical context of Europe, we will find a very huge gap. Like European was leading the world back in 19th century or 20th century, even before Second World War. But today in contemporary world, US is leading the world along with emerging power China. Why? What is the cause behind such pathetic position of Europe? Why Europe is deteriorating? Why Europe is going back in the history? Because European nations are disregarding the teachings of Treaty of Westphalia. And at the end of this chapter, Henry Kissinger, the author of this book, point out the uncertainty about European balance, and he postulated this matter. Henry Kissinger stated that I am uncertain about future of a European nation because I'm not sure that they will follow the teachings of Treaty of Westphalia. Now coming towards the analytic stance, how I say author statement of this chapter. In this chapter, all the arguments made by the author is quite befitting. Is and I fully agree with these stances because upon critical thinking, I become enlightened with the fact that neglecting Westphalia teachings become the leading cause of European pathetic conditions. For example, let me give you a clear example. One of the teaching of Treaty of Westphalia was keeping religion in politics aside. But in contemporary European nation, they mixed up both these things. The religion in European nation are going parallel with their politics. Similarly, the state sovereignty in Europe, not in Europe, but in whole world, is severely neglected. Like none of the state in contemporary world is sovereign, which sovereignty was another major teaching of which we get from Treaty of Westphalia. During both world wars, European states become severely affected, both economically and physically, because they disregard teachings of Westphalia. Here, the author also make another statement that the deteriorating cause of Europe is not only related to Treaty of Westphalia, disregarding of Treaty of Westphalia, but the same teaching, the disregard of same teachings cause huge losses for Europe. Because if you will study both the world wars, World War One and World War Two, we will be aware with the fact that European nations were the most affected nation of both world wars. For example, we have example of Germany. Germany was the most severely affected of both the world war, which was a European nation. Same goes for the other nation. Another aspect which is being described in this chapter is the role of Russia in the region, which is also consequentially stated by the author. At the end of World War II, Russia emerged as a global power and comes in direct hegemonic race with the US. Being a littoral state of Europe, Russian activities aims at becoming hegemonic state affect European state. The political maneuvering of any state will surely affect the neighboring states. So here, this case is also pointed out by the author that Russian presence in this region near to Europe is also one of the leading cause of European imbalance of power. And I agree with author this statement as well, because if you will look at the Russian history, or if you will look at the today Russian state, Russian Federation, we will be enlightened with the fact that Russian are still struggling for global hegemonic race, and they are becoming ally of Chinese bloc to counter China, to counter US in every field, in every aspect of life, and in every region of the world. During Cold War, now the author is going back to the era of Cold War between US and Russia. Europe was continuously facing imbalance of power. Now the Cold War was going between Russia and US, but the imbalance of power was in Europe. Europe was not directly involved in Cold War, but still during Cold War, Europe was the most imbalanced continent of the world due to effects of the Cold War between US and Russia. Thus, the role of Russia is quite pertinent and rightly mentioned by the author. Now, the next major teaching, the next major concept which is touched by the author in this book is the Islamic world order. Is the most second basic concept in this book. Henry Kissinger emphasis revolves around current Islamic world order by connecting it to historical perspective of Islam, like European balance of power, where the other connects it to old Treaty of Westphalia back to 1648. Similarly, the other also take historical context of Islam in uh, describing the Islamic world order. The author also takes into account Middle East crisis along with wars imposed on Islamic State. Henry Kissinger also gives touch to all the wars which are being imposed on Islamic State, like Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, we have Syria, we have Lebanon, we have Iraq, and more recently we have skirmishes in Iran as well. The author gave touch to all these wars, but from the American perspective. Why did he give only the American perspective? You will be clear with this fact at the end of today's review session. In addition, the author also makes quite consequential statements about down and fall of Ottoman Empire. In one chapter, almost comprised of 25 pages in one chapter, which was a half of the chapter, the author is only concerned about Ottoman Empire, that how Ottoman Empire was emerged in the world and how it deteriorates, what were the causes of deterioration of Ottoman Empire, along with providing appropriate knowledge about Arab Spring. Arab Spring was another consequential event in Islamic history and Islamic world. So the author also gave touch to this aspect. At the end of this chapter, the author compare Westphalian state system with that of Islamic world order. In Europe, the Westphalian state system is prevailing. In Arab world and most parts of the Asia, there are Islamic states. So author give a brief comparison to both type of system. This is the comparison. According to author, unlike Westphalian state system, which is guiding principle of stability, that there was also a Western, so that's why he called this the Treaty of Westphalia, the Westphalian state system is the guiding principle of stability. It means that near to author, the Westphalian state system is the best one. Uh, Parallelly, the author also stated that Islamic state system is based on purity, which is quite right. Being a Muslim, we believe that our state system, our religion is based on purity. One of the major reasons the author mentioned in this chapter about the stability and stability paradox in international world order and global politics is the incompatibility of Islamic world order with Westphalian state system. Like the both systems are incompatible. Like Islam direct us to interfere in politics, while Treaty of Westphalia direct us to keep both these terms aside. Similarly, we have the concept of state sovereignty in Westphalian state system, and sovereignty belongs to Allah in Islamic state system. So there are serious type of differences between Westphalian and Islamic world system, which is the leading cause of skirmishes, or which is the leading cause of stability and instability paradox in global environment. Unlike Westphalian state system, which is based on stability, the Islamic world system is based on purity. These are Athar's statement. Now, in Islamic world order, Henry Kissinger also gives a comprehensive touch to US-Iran relation, because we all know that US-Iran relation remains bitter, it remains harsh, it remains bad throughout history, especially after Islamic Revolution of Iran back in 1979. So this is the first concept in this chapter, that that also gave brief touch to the Islamic Revolution of Iran, which were occurring back in 1979, along with Iranian Revolution. The author also gave touch to Iranian nuclear deal, and the complexities arise related to this is also covered in a better way. Like we all know that back in 2016, when Trump was the president of become the president of United States of America, the first order he passed from the White House was withdrawing back from Iranian nuclear deal, because they feel some threats from the Iranian side about making the weapons of deterrence. These complexities are very comprehensively covered in this chapter, but again, this is only from the US perspective or the Western perspective. According to other, Iranian enjoy feelings of nationhood. We all know that Iran is composed of 99% Shia Muslim, so they are like one nation. Their culture, their civilization, their history, their religion, their language, everything is same. Along with nationhood, Iranian are strict followers of their tradition, which is based on ancient Persian teachings. Besides, Henry Kissinger also gives comprehensive touch to the Shia sects dominating Iran. The Shia sects remain the subject matter of Henry Kissinger in Islamic World Order and the USR in the US-Iran relation. According to Attab, the aforementioned sect, like the Shia sect, formulate a belt from Tehran through Baghdad to Beirut. Tehran is the capital of Iran, Baghdad is the capital of Iraq, and Beirut is the capital of Lebanon, which strengthened the Islamists belonging to this group. This region belongs to Shia Muslim according to Athar's perspective. This strengthened belt is basically responsible for the renewal of Persian civilization, but this time under Shia leadership. The Persian civilization, which are in Iran, in the other few Central Asian republics, are dominated by religion. Shia is leading this zone. Like in Pakistan, if we see, we have majority of Sunni Muslims. We have the Shia Muslims are in minority in Pakistan. Similarly, in Beirut and Baghdad, in Beirut and in Tehran, the Shia Muslim are leading this region. Now, this is important analytical approach, and you people are also requested to put your analytical approach on this point in chat box. In my opinion, the statements made by Athar in this chapter is based on biasness and hostile attitude rather than facts and precisions. I don't think that these are facts which the Athar described in the last chapter about Islamic world order. The Athar hostile attitude is quite pertinent from his statement. This is the most important statement of Athar. This I highlighted for you people. Geographically, I consider Iran a bigger threat than ISIS. ISIS refers to Daesh here. Like, if we will analyze this statement critically, we would be enlightened with the fact that writer approach is completely based on biasness. ISIS is a group of adventurous people acting as non-state actors in global environment, while Iran is a recognized state by more than 190 states. That they vividly adopt a biased approach in this chapter. This is my opinion. Your opinion may be different, but this is my opinion. Like, how can a nation, how can a non-state actors, like how can a state actors be a bigger threat than non-state actors? We all know that Daesh, the people of Daesh, the terrorists of Daesh conduct activities throughout the world, but still the author is saying that Iran is a bigger threat than ISIS. The third concept of this book is related to Asian balance of power. The author start this chapter with esteeming India and Japan. India and Japan both are allies of US, so their breathing in this chapter is quite clear. The author linked this appreciation to the alliance of Japan with US in post-war era. Like the author says that Japan directly become ally of US. The same Japan was like a state, like a non-state actor for the US State Department. And the same Japan, when become ally of United States after World War One, it is being appreciated by the US State Department. According to Athar, India and Japan are acting in very much responsible way for achieving balance of power in Asia. Like how funny this is. India and Japan are acting for achieving balance of power in Asia. This is Athar's view in this chapter. They are not indulged in competition, which can disturb the balance of power. Meanwhile, the Athar present China is a substantial threat for global world order. Kissinger states that the rising military budget and China's activity in South China Sea can potentially disrupt not only Asian balance of power, but it may have consequential effects on global world order. For your information, there is a serious uh, arms race, there is serious economic race, there is serious maritime race going on the Asia Pacific region between China on one hand and India, Japan, Australia, and US, the Quad states on other state. So this approach is basically based on the alliance of Quad versus China. One more thing that in contemporary world, China is emerging a global power. And that they believe that China's rise isn't a mere rise of a single state, but this rising power will be at the expense of unipolar American world order. Here, the author agree with the statement that China is going to challenge the hegemonic nature of US in near future. For this, the author quotes statistic from Harvard Institute research that established power, US in this case, like we have established hegemonic power, US in contemporary world, and the rising power, China in that case, like China is going to be a global power in next few decades, always face head of collusion and result in war. If you will witness the history, there are many civilization rise and there are many civilization falls because one civilization challenged the hegemony of another one and another one challenged the hegemony of previous one. In this way, the end result of this race is what? Kissinger does not only perceive China rise a threat to US hegemonic nature, rather, he is also of the opinion that China's rise will compel Japan in India to invest more on their defense. So this is quite applicable statement by the author that China's rise is not only threat for United States of America, but Chinese rise is going to threaten all the littoral state of Indian Ocean, including Australia, Japan, and South Korea, North Korea, Iran, etc. All hostile states of India. Now coming towards my analysis, this is quite preeminent approach which can be understood by understanding contemporary global politics. If we will look contemporary global politics, we will be enlightened with the fact that there is a continuous hegemonic race is going on between United States of America and People Republic of China. Being a US diplomat and expert of global politics, Kissinger was sure about rise of China in near future, and these thoughts dominate his mind while writing this book. This is my opinion. I believe that when Kissinger was writing this book, his mind was dominated by the rising nature of China. Today, US along with her Quad allies, Quad allies means India, Japan, Australia, and US. These are Quad allies are trying to balance China in Asia Pacific region, and China's extensive and remarkable investment in this region become major reason of their aggravation. Kissinger actually foresaw this future and called China an emerging threat in terms of US challenging competitor. Like Kissinger states that China is emerging threat. Like China isn't a terrorist state. So in this sense, we can't say that Kissinger By his statement, Kissinger means that China is going to be a terrorist state in future. No, not. China is going to threaten the US hegemony. In this case, the Kissinger is referring to referring Chinese rise to US challenging competitor. Now, the final concept of this book, which is almost the second last chapter, and the final chapter is related to technology, but it is not that much important. The second last chapter of this book is the final concept of this book is concerned about the American world order and role of America in global environment. In this chapter, the author makes quite biased statement. Now, this is my approach. The author is quite biased in this chapter. For instance, according to author, American invasions of various states are for achievements of global peace. But ground reality shows something else. Like the author is saying that America invade Syria, America invade Iraq, America invade Afghanistan, America invade the rest of the states for achieving global peace, not for their personal interest. But ground realities are in front of us. He is portraying US a liberalistic state. Liberalistic state means a state which always strive for achieving peace, for promoting prosperity, for promoting diplomatic prosperity in the whole world. He is portraying US a liberalistic state, keen for securing peace around the globe, but American actions are completely realistic in nature. If you will observe the American nation, American steps, American actions in global environment, one should be aware of the fact that America always act in light of her national interest. Likewise, he believes that US is the only state capable of leading new world order because there isn't any other country appropriate for this task. In his opinion, for stable world order, world leadership should be given to US, but this protestation isn't precise up to mark in my opinion. Like how funny it is it Henry Kissinger is saying that America could betterly lead the whole world in spite of the American actions in past for their own national interest. The role of United States after World War II remains quite controversial, but according to the role of America is quite pertinent from their action based on liberalistic approach. That there is again stressing on the fact that American actions were based on liberalistic approach. On one occasion, the author made quite consequential statements by mentioning United States as an ambivalent superpower caught between liberalism dilemma at one time in few pages in this chapter of book. The author rightly mentioned that sometimes America stuck between realism and liberalism dilemma. They didn't know that which aspect they should follow in this situation. This is the only statement in this chapter which I believe is based on realistic approach. This approach is not biased because every state always stuck between realism and liberalism. For example, in 2001, Pakistan was stuck between realism, liberalism dilemma. On one hand, our national interests were tied with United States of America. We were looking at this perspective, like realistic perspective. On the other hand, we were aware of the fact that if we will side United States in a one war, the major casualties of human lives will happen in this region. So this is not fair. So this is liberalistic approach, but at the end we will go with the realistic approach. Similarly, United States sometimes caught between realism, liberalism dilemma, but they always go with realist perspective. The rest of the chapter is completely based on biased approach aiming at glorification of America. According to author, American involvement from Korean to Afghan war was aiming at achieving a peaceful world order. In my opinion, this approach of author is nothing but an idealistic approach based on glorification of United States of America. The author remains on various high official posts in US due to which he made these statements. Now coming towards the conclusion, I know the time is running out. I have taken much of your time. Now coming towards the conclusion, in a nutshell, in a conclusion, Henry Kissinger guides the readers through crucial episodes of history in a much better way than any writer, but his teaching related to American world order became maligned due to his patriotic emotion. I think you should be clear with the fact that if I am a Pakistani, I will always praise Pakistani. If I am a patriotic Pakistani. Same was the case with Henry Kissinger. America, being a liberalistic state, interferes in every state affairs, motivated by her own national interest. Similarly, America became hegemonic state, but never intended to play game of power politics. Conclusively, I can say that the book gives insightful view of world problems with and without suggesting appropriate solution. Now, what is with and without appropriate solution? In some cases, the author suggests very good solution, which I have mentioned back in my review. And in some cases, America should lead the world. This is quite malign type of solution for achieving of global world order. Coming towards the last slide, recommendation, that would I will recommend this book to my readers, to the audience or not. As far as recommendation is concerned, I will recommend this book to everyone, especially to the students of international relations who is interested in understanding global complexities. But why I am recommending this book? Because world art is not only enlighten us with significant international realities existing on global level, but it also provides reader with fascinating insights about European and Asian balance of power, world history, role of American world, Islamic world order, conflicts in Middle East, and the role of technology in contemporary world. This was the role of technology, the last chapter of the book, but this was not that much important. I didn't consider this much important this chapter uh, as compared to the other. It is equally beneficial for all those who are willing to keep themselves updated with what's going on in global environment on global level, and what will be the world order in future. Because the Henry Kissinger, we can easily predict the future world order from this book. Finally, the most important recommendation that I will advise the readers, that while reading this book, it should be kept in mind that the writer remains National Security Advisor of United States and US High State official multiple times. So his patriotic ambition is quite pertinent, that his patriotic ambitions would dominate his writing. That was all from my side. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Izaz, for sharing your thoughts and reviews about this book with us and explaining everything in parts through slides. It was great. So now we can move forward to the discussion session about this all. So let's check out what we have got in the chat box. So here is the first statement from Fatma Faha Malik. I agree the chapter based upon Islam is based upon biasness, most probably due to his anti-Muslim approach in various circumstances for which Henry Kissinger is known. So what will you comment, Izaz?
Well, I think she would be clear with her question, because in my analytic approach, I clearly mentioned that this approach is completely based on biasness. Like Islam is based on purity, but how can he consider the Westphalian state system better than Islamic state system? First, being a Muslim, we can say that Islam is the best one. And another, upon critical analysis, if we look at the history, if we will look at the Muslim empires, they always remains much stable as compared to European or the rest of the Western empires. So she is right with her statement.
Okay, thank you. So the next question we have got is from Ali Mujahid Khattak. What do you think on which basis author considered Iraq a bigger threat than ISIS?
As I earlier mentioned in my review, that Iran and US relation always remains better throughout the history, and also their concerns arise over the Iran nuclear deal. Similarly, Iran isn't doing like anything in interest of United States of America. Like, due to hostility between United States of America and Iran, the other adopt this severe type of biased approach.
Okay, thank you. And then again, we have a statement from Fatma Fahamalik. Kissinger has been persistent about the role of US as world policeman. Do you think this behavior will be challenging for the world and also threaten US existence with more and more countries in the upcoming days being in detail with the concept of US being world policeman?
Well, US exists as far as this statement is concerned, it will challenge the US existence. So I will not agree with this statement because US is a hegemonic state from the end of Cold War, like from 1991. US is still a hegemonic state, and hegemonic state is that much developed that without running their industries, with zero GDP, they can survive up to 100 years. So the existence of US is not challenged by China, nor by Russia, nor by any type of alliance, because US is quite militarily and economically quite very well developed state. But I will agree with this statement to a little extent. Like, the state of US, the hegemony that US is enjoying right now, or the hegemony which US was enjoying back in history, will be challenged. This will be reduced, and this will be challenged to greater extent by China. So it will be reduced. Like, I can go with this statement, like it's 70% it will be reduced. Like, the hegemony which is enjoying right now will be reduced by 70% in next 2 to 3 decades due to their nature of global policemen, because they've lost they've faced too many casualties in every war, especially in the latest war in Afghanistan. They spall their trillions of dollars. So this was due to their police nature, global police nature. So I think US isn't going anymore with this strategy of being a global police watchman. But if US will go with this her own her traditional policy of being a global police watchman, so definitely she is going to suffer the most.
Okay. So next question is from Avas Nazir. Can we say that this one of the best work on realist American perspective about the world order despite of author's biasness?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Can we say that this is one of the best work on realist American perspective about world order despite of author's biasness?
Yes, from the American perspective, if we look at the book, this book is perfect one. In my recommendation, I recommend it to all my readers, but I also mentioned that few chapters like Henry Kissinger and Islamic world order, and Henry Kissinger and US-Iran relation, or Henry Kissinger and American world order is based on biasness, but still the facts and figures which the author gave in his book are quite consequential. And from American perspective, every chapter is best one, and because everything goes in American national interest, and everyone is satisfied until his or her state's national interest are satisfied.
So the next one is from Arsalan Rao. According to the Times, this book is a sage in age of disorder. How? Can you
Can
hear?
you repeat this question?
Okay, okay. According to the Times, this book is a sage in the age of disorder. How?
I'm not getting his question, Arslan. Please elaborate your question a bit.
Arsalan, can you hear?
Sir, according to Time magazine, this book is a sage in the age of disorder. How?
What did mean the term sage here? Like wise through reflection or experience? This Wiseness? Did this term sage means wiseness?
Yes, yes, biasness.
Well, if again we will look to the American perspective or the Western perspective, the Time magazine, the author which wrote this article in this magazine will be definitely a Western perspective. He or she would be pro-Western, because from Western perspective, this is the most wise strategy with which the state can go. But if we will observe from the Eastern perspective, or from the Chinese perspective, or from the rest of the states perspective, so I don't think that this is a wise strategy from the Eastern perspective. But again, from American perspective, it is the perfect one.
Okay. Arsalan, would you like to comment? Or should I move to the next one? Okay, now let's move on to the next one. That is from Arisha Manzoor. How would you analyze author's statement that there is no real world order? Even if China is emerging power, US is still superpower. There are other veto powers means there is a world order. So how can we figure our author's statement?
Well, that is quite right with this statement. There is no real world order. But first it should be clear to you what is world order. What is order? When we kept everything in order in room, we usually use the term that please order the room, please kept the books in order. There is a proper hierarchy in everything. In international environment, we have anarchic global structure. We have the global structure is anarchic in nature, means there are no central authority above the state. So whenever there isn't any authority, like you can take example from your family, that when any family in your society lacks the central authority in form of his mother, in form of their mother or their father, this house doesn't remain in order. So the author is quite right. We haven't any central authority. There is China is emerging power. US is still a hegemonic power. There are major powers, but at the start I mentioned that every civilization will define the world order according to her own national interest. Like to the Western people, to the US State Department, or to the pro-US people, American world order will be the best one. And same goes for China. For the Chinese, pro-Chinese people, like for the states like Pakistan, Chinese world order is the best one. Now, there is a dilemma that which one is better one, which one is best one. It will be depend upon the person who is analyzing the world order. So in this dilemma, there isn't a true world order existing, and the other is 100% right with his statement.
Okay, thank you, Izaz. So the next one we've got from Fawad Khan Afridi. Can we say current world order is multipolar?
Well, we can say it multipolar in a sense if we will consider the allies of state, like the quad allies of US, Australia, Japan, and India. So they are also enjoying a power to little extent, but the major competition is going on between United States of America and China. So a major power cannot be considered in global world order. For example, let's take the example of India. India is an emerging major power, but Indian influence is only limited to the regional states. India isn't influencing France, or India isn't influencing Germany, though to the capital power, to the consumption power, they are influencing to a little, but not to that much extent. So we cannot say that current world order is multipolar. The current world order is unipolar going towards bipolar. It's not still bipolar, but it is going towards, it is on the way to bipolar, and it will be probably, according to other as well, in next 2 to 3 decades, the China is going to emerge as a hegemonic state. And also the immense number of philosophers states that 21st century belongs to Beijing.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is from Muhammad Zishan. Can an idealist state have influence on world order, or world order is purely realist component?
Well, in international relation, in global politics, nothing is absolute. Now, in your question, there's another question that what is who is idealist state and who is a realist? Every state consider herself an idealist one and realist his opponent. Like Henry Kissinger in this book, in World Order, states that America is a liberalistic state. But what we consider America, we consider America a realistic state. So this is completely depend upon your approach, it how you approach towards that particular state. So, but your question is idealist state. Yes, idealist state have the influence on global world order. America is an idealist state according to their State Department, according to their interest, and America is a hegemonic state. Similarly, China have influence on multiple number of states and engage them in BRI, like Belt and Road Initiative. And China is also have influence on global state. And Chinese analysts consider their state is an idealistic state. So this completely based on your approach, at how you approach particular state. So uh, saying any state like it is idealist or realist one is quite difficult job, at least near to me.
Okay. Now we have got a statement from Park Park. Say world order is going towards multipolar, not towards bipolar. What?
So she, I think, just paused her statement, and she may be right with her statement. But as per my opinion, and as per this book is concerned, the world is going towards bipolar because we haven't any other third major power or global power in emerging state.
That's all we have got in the chat box. Before closing this, I would like you all who have dropped their question in the chat box if you want to comment or if you want to discuss anything. Okay, we have got one another. Arisha Mansoor is addressing to Malik Bilal. Okay. Anis Vadud Khan, is this book is best to understand realist perspective?
Well, few chapters are perfect one to understand the realist perspective, like the chapter related to Asian balance of power and the chapter related to European balance of power. But few chapters like other statement on Islamic world order or American world order is completely based on liberalistic perspective. So there's a mix-up of realism and liberalism in this chapter.
That is all we have got here. Anyone
Okay,
else?
so let's end this question
Okay.
answer session.
Okay. So it's all from tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. It was great to have all of you here tonight. And thanks again to Izaz Khattak for enlightening us with this informative review. And we are really grateful to you. And you all are welcome in our upcoming sessions. Thanks again and stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.